Hello, everyone, and welcome. We are really excited that you have joined us today. We're just going to take a few moments to let everybody filter in. It's a great time to get situated, and we will be back in about 2 minutes to get started. If you are just entering in, welcome. Thanks for joining us. We're just going to give everyone one more minute to join, and then we will get started. Thanks for your patience. Alrighty, I think we are good to get started. Again, welcome. Thanks for joining us today. Just want to let you know if you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to drop those in the question box on the right-hand control panel, and we'll make sure to get those answered for you. Additionally, as a reminder, we will be sending you free Flex credits tomorrow as a follow-up after this presentation, so that you can go out there and try it yourself. We're really excited for this presentation and thrilled that you've joined us. And at this point, I'm going to pass it over to our amazing presenter, Jose.
Thank you, and hi everyone. Welcome to today's session. Today, really want to focus on give you an understanding of our new offering, Flex. I'll be doing that by, giving you actually a little bit of a background in terms of why you would even want to be testing. After I give you an overview about AttackIQ, from there, I actually want to give you a sense of the process that organizations typically go through when doing, say, a full purple team exercise, or just doing testing today. And then want to show you what that looks like with Flex. The goal here is really to, from our perspective, is to democratize testing. We see massive misconfigurations in environments, and we don't want to make this available to folks such as you. And then I also want to give you a sense of where this content is coming from. What's the process that we go through here at AttackIQ to ensure that you are testing yourself and have content available for some of the latest emerging threats. And then we'll finish up by just showing you Flex and how that works. And what's special about today's session is those of you on the call currently, you'll all be getting 25 Flex credits as part of the offering, so you can go try this out yourself and evaluate yourself against that environment. So that's what I have in the agenda for today. Please pop in any questions as those come up, and more than happy to either answer them on the call today or we'll follow up with you accordingly. Before I get it started and talk about us as a company, let me give you a little bit of information about myself. My name is Jose Barajas, and I am from San Diego, California. I'm the VP of Field here at AttackIQ. I always like to share this. My favorite technique ID is T1004. For those of you that follow MITRE closely and are operators, the reason why I love this one is, while it's the most simplest kind of technique, widely known technique, I still go to organizations today and find that they're not able to mitigate or detect this type of behavior. Frankly, a free AV could mitigate this, but those are the types of misconfigurations we see, and this is why I am so excited about this space and want everyone to test. Hence, why we're talking about Flex today. Beyond that, I lead the sales engineering team here at AttackIQ as part of my role, but also work directly with the MITRE Ingenuity Group. For those of you that know, we do research with them on behalf of the company as well. My background, I actually started off as a web developer, and for those of you that have been in the industry long enough know that Flash was a thorn in our side for quite some time. That really is what got me into cybersecurity, where I started reverse engineering Flash, and then from there binaries, did a lot of CNC research and did develop some sandboxing technologies. And for the last 9 years, I've been here at AttackIQ focused on security optimization of organizations. So that's kind of the background where I'm coming from and why I'm so passionate about this space. But before I get talking about Flex, let's just give you a little bit of background for those of you that may not know AttackIQ. AttackIQ, what we do, based at least on Gartner's description, is what we call breach and attack simulation. So we're in that space, which means that we're helping validate, the huge investment that your organization has done from a security perspective, and just validating that it works. The analogy I like to use is, just like IT ops has processes today to make sure, 99.999% uptime, those 5 nines, we want to do that for your cybersecurity program as well. We're best in breed in that, we're not just here developing a product, but actually are helping develop the practice through the MITRE Ingenuity Group. Our focus is on larger organizations, enterprise organizations globally. But with Flex, we want to make this testing that is typically only available to the Fortune 2000 of the world, not only because of having products like AttackIQ, but they have entire red teams, entire blue teams. They have dedicated threat intel teams, probably 10 times the size of the entire security team of some organizations. So we really wanted, through Flex, which I'm going to focus on talking now, make testing available for everyone. And again, we're going to be giving those out to you so you can actually get started. But before I talk about Flex, I want to talk a little bit about the type of things that you're facing, probably hearing from your management or dealing with some of these questions yourself. And those questions are going to be, first and foremost, and I would see this all the time, is what is your ability to stop the new threat in the news, right? Our management, our executives, even people on the board are seeing news in the world, and we're the ones that have to go and answer that question. As you'll see in a little bit, at AttackIQ, we'll be giving you the latest emerging threats so that you can answer that question from the position of, out of the 20 things that this does, we're covered on 18 of them, and these are the 2 things that we have to do in order to get better, as an example. We want to put you in that position. Other questions that we see quite a lot, and this is more from when dealing with other organizations, maybe some of your regulators are asking you these questions, but what they used to ask is, what technologies are you using to mitigate current threats? What are you using to mitigate ransomware, as an example? And previously, your team could just fill out a form, paper exercise, and say, this is what I'm using. The regulator or the other person would say, great, that sounds awesome. But what's changed, and some of you, if you haven't noticed this, you probably will soon, is that question's shifted quite a lot. And instead of asking what technologies are you using, they're asking, can you prove you have the ability to mitigate ransomware or fill in whatever threat? That's a very, very different question to answer in order to provide that capability. Essentially, they want you to showcase your ability to do that. And from that perspective, how do we measure the effectiveness of our security program? Is another question. This is probably coming internally, right? We have a board of directors that sees the money that security is consuming, and they want to understand what they get out of it. And unfortunately, the attacker only has to be right once, for this to kind of showcase in a negative light, I guess is the best way of putting it. So we have a very, very hard team ahead of us. The last 2 things I wanted to bring up, some of you may be getting these questions, some of you may not, but we are starting to see some of board members of companies, and I think you're seeing a pattern here, is that even the everyday user is starting to become aware of the cybersecurity program, And at some of our people that we work with, the board is starting to ask, what are our plans to adopt a red team and a purple team model? Now, this is coming from groups like FBI's InfraGard, for those of you that know, but they're talking about the value of these at organizations, what the benefits are. So that means us as practitioners are starting to get those questions as well. Of course, Flex is going to help provide some of those capabilities for you, which is why we're talking about that today. And then for any of those on the other side of the pond, you guys recently had DORA release new regulations specific to how to validate that your controls are working. So some of this testing function is a requirement there. So from that perspective, those regulations are coming down for another 2 years. This phase 1 is coming out next year, and then the full implementation the year after. So we have some time here. But these are the type of questions that as analysts, you're either getting directly or through your management, right? In order to address some of the business needs from that perspective. And, this is exactly why we've built Flex. And the idea with this is for those organizations that may not have a full enterprise team to manage this, or for enterprises that really want to leverage this, say, with third-party risk or part of mergers and acquisitions, we built Flex to be an on-demand way to take all of the content, all of the work that we've done on the enterprise side for the last 10 years and make it readily available for folks to do some testing here within their environment. And the question might come either from you as you're hearing me talk about this, or from management as you try to introduce this concept. Why do we need to test, right? And I like to use a simple analogy of fire as an example as to why we should be doing testing and why it's important. And the analogy I like to use is just like in our cybersecurity world, we have concepts like NIST, ISO 27001, SOC 2 Type 2. These are all standards that we have to meet to ensure that we're securing things correctly. Well, when it comes to fire, there's a standard here, I don't know if you knew this or not, called NFPA 25. Now, I didn't know about this. I don't even have to think about this, but in my building that I used to live in, for example, I remember seeing these type of fire devices. And what this standard defines is the mean time to failure, mean time to repair, the time between failures. So what that means, let's assume the time to failure is 6 months. The fire department is coming in here doing a service on this device at the 5-month mark or prior to that 6-month mark. What that does, it ensures that this device is actually going to spit out water when the fire is happening and occurring, right? This is the piece that we're missing when it comes to cybersecurity and all the work that we're doing. And through Flex, which I'm going to show you that process next, we're going to be able to establish a way of actually validating that our controls are working effectively. And then I also like to use, many of you are probably at home, since work at home is quite common, but if you look up, you probably have a fire detector in your room or in the adjacent room. And what I always laugh at is, you can probably buy this at Lowe's for $4.99. It's a $5 device. It has a feedback loop. It has a little button that you can press and you can test to make sure that it's ready and working and functional when the fire occurs. However, we spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in cybersecurity and we have no way of validating. That's what Flex comes in and what we want to provide you as an organization. Now, let's talk a little bit about the process of how it was done by organizations previously and how Flex is going to help really reduce this time within your organizations. So previously, if you wanted to do some kind of assessment, right, whether it's a one-off, say for the current threat that's super important to the board, maybe there's an M&A that's happening for those on kind of enterprise organizations, or you really just wanted to do some kind of assessment to understand where you stand. This really would take a matter of weeks, if not months, in order to go ahead and establish this process. Whether it's through a red team, engaging on those teams, defining the kind of the roles and responsibilities, what the scope of the testing is, how are we going to schedule this, across multiple stakeholders that are going to be involved as part of this process. And from there, it really will take, again, a matter of weeks in order to accomplish the testing. What we've done with Flex is really reduce the downtime of all this coordination that needs to happen, really the level of engagement that you need from a variety of different groups. Where what we're doing here is, instead of having to go through that process, it's simply going to be selecting the package from the Flex portal. I'll show you what those packages look like in a little bit when we get to the demo portion. You just download that package. You actually just double click on it like you would any application, and that'll generate an output file that can then be uploaded, and those results are there immediately. This takes a matter of minutes. Within a 1 hour mark, you can go through this entire process and have a report ready to go. And that's going to give you essentially the ability to test without having to do any previous setup, any previous configurations. You just have to take the Flex package and run it on that environment. This is what Flex means, is just really reducing the time to actually get some testing results, but also allowing you to test on your schedule. A lot of us, a lot of organizations may not have, like I said, the 100-person threat intel team that the top banks in the world have, as for example. You may be a team of 1. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't be able to test your work, that you shouldn't be able to verify your work. And with Flex, we want to allow you to test on demand versus having to stand an entire program, which is what organizations had to do historically. Now, a big portion of Flex is going to be keeping up with the latest and emerging threats. So I wanted to walk through that just to give you a sense of the work that's really happening in the background to provide you with adversary emulations as part of this service to help you understand your posture as current and emerging threats are occurring and you're getting those questions. How do we actually generate the packages there? And for us, what an emerging threat is going to be, something that's timely, typically something that's occurring in the moment. Not just a report that was recent, but activity described, to hit the masses, as an example. From here, we want to make sure that it's relevant, right? We want to make sure that the type, the type of content that we're going after is actually targeting, our customer base, the typical folks, that should care about this. And we do that by, focusing on things like CISA alerts, focusing on things like new TTPs and MITRE releases based on those emerging threats, basically patterns, new patterns attackers are using. And then finally, we also want to make sure that it's impactful, right? These are the type of things that, if we go to what I mentioned earlier, are threats that you're probably getting questions about anyways, right? Somebody read about it in the news, they're asking you about it. We want to make sure that we have, coverage there for you. And, from our perspective, the different threat intels resources that we use are going to vary. Basically the standards that you see across the board are going to be leveraged here. We also have partners that we work with directly, and of course work, with the MITRE sightings ecosystem for new MITRE threats as well. As we understand the threat, we start to collect the information, extract out basically the different TTPs that are known to be used by a given threat actor, and start to put together a picture of how these TTPs are working between one another, how they're coordinating context, so that we can build out an entire kill chain and push out a content that can help you test that environment. And one thing that I want to note is that initial finding, that initial response that we provide is going to be just the tip of the iceberg, right? The first few days compared to the first 2 to 3 weeks, compared to 6 weeks later, we start to get a better and better picture of exactly what the threat actor is doing, the different varieties in which a threat actor might employ a given attack technique. So from a research perspective, as a team, we're going to continue to keep track of these latest trends and continue to update the content for you in order to help you understand, as we better understand a given threat, how it can be employed, from that perspective. And what the team does from here is they're going to put it all together, for example, in this case, in this US CERT alert, into what we call an attack graph. An attack graph actually replicates step-by-step the actions that the attacker would take, the logic that the attacker would take. For example, I'm going to try these 5 discovery techniques, and depending on what I can successfully find, I'm going to exfiltrate that data. So to that degree is how we're actually, measuring what the attacker is doing, and then employing that through our framework to make that available to you. And this is always going to come with a corresponding blog where we can go in depth, step by step, what the threat actor is doing, what are the TTPs involved, what does that attack graph or attack flow look like, and finally, what are the mitigation recommendations that we suggest based on our experience, as AttackIQ, essentially there. And that the final output is really going to be, again, a Flex package. I'm going to go into a demo here next, but from a Flex package perspective, the 4 key things that I want you to know that you get out of this is, 1, we're going to have a ton of content to help baseline your capabilities, such as EDR, AV, and content filtering solutions. We're going to produce these thread packages that I just mentioned, essentially emulating entire details step by step there. One thing that I think you'll appreciate, and again, you'll see this in the demo in a moment, is going to be performance scoring. Not only are we telling you your results, but are you doing better or are you doing worse than the AttackIQ community? Are you doing just as good as other folks that have EDR or not? We wanted to give you this so that you can benchmark yourself and understand where you are. And obviously, if you're doing better than most, that's good. If you still have some things to fix, we're still going to give you mitigation recommendations, but at least you know where you stand is the idea. And then finally, we just talked about this, but we have our research team that's going to continuously provide output as we have some of these emerging threats. So with that, let's actually go ahead and let me go ahead and show you AttackIQ Flex and how the service actually works. All right. So now you should be able to see my screen here. I'm here logged into my AttackIQ Flex tenant. And to start, it's actually very simple to get started with AttackIQ Flex. First and foremost, you're going to download your Flex package. I'll show you those packages next so you can see what that entails. That Flex package is essentially going to be one file that gets downloaded. You can go ahead and put that on the endpoint that you want to test, whether it's that machine itself, or you can actually, maybe that machine is within an environment, a network environment that should be protecting it. From there, there's going to be an encrypted output that gets pushed down in that same directory that you're going to upload back into the platform, which is then going to actually help you analyze the results and generate a report, which I'll absolutely be showing you here in a moment. That's it. We wanted to make it very simple. No need to set up agents, no need to set up anything else. Beyond that, by being able to run this independent package, it's easy to quickly run an assessment in a matter of minutes and get that context back in the AttackIQ platform, as you can see here. Here we have some of the latest threats. Here we have some reports that I previously ran. But before we do that, let's go take a look at the packages that we have available. From a packaging perspective here, I first want to show you that this concept is actually going to be ran with credits. So the idea here is there's no need to have a yearly subscription. You can go ahead and pick the credits you think you'll consume in a given year, or just buy them ad hoc is the idea. We want to give you these credits so you can test, as you see fit. And then from there, we have things like our security baseline assessments where we can see across content filter, endpoint antivirus, and even endpoint EDR. We're giving you this assessment that's going to test the most common capabilities that any one of these technology classes should have, so that you can get a sense of where you stand, see if there's anything that you've outright missed or anything like that, so that you can address those gaps as part of that. In order to run the test, like we mentioned, you can just download the package directly, and then you literally just double click it to run. But we can also, for those of you that maybe are working with different groups, you can actually go ahead and just copy this link here and actually send it to somebody. They can go ahead and with that link, without having to have access to this directly, can download the package, run it locally on their environment, and then send you the file so that it can be uploaded and analyzed by the AttackIQ platform itself. Now, before I jump to the analysis and show you what that looks like, here we have a variety of different adversary emulation assessments that we've released. So you can see here across, Kimsuki, Lazarus Group, Nobelium, Oil Rig, Turla. We have a number of threat assessments already ready to go. And for each of these, we're going to break down all the TTPs, as you can see that this is known to do. And of course, we're always going to provide you these external resources beyond our blog that you can leverage and use to better understand the threat as well. Now, at this point, like I said, you're going to download a package, run it locally, and what's going to happen is you're going to go ahead and come here to the Analyze tab. You can upload your file here, that was the output, provide a label and description just to keep things a little organized. And then from there, we have all these reports that we've cached in. And as you can see, you actually don't get charged those credits until you actually choose to view it. So I can confirm that and view that. I'm not going to do that just for the purpose of the demo. But let's go ahead and take a look at some of these. And we'll start by taking a look at the Lazarus group and show you what the report from this looks like. If we take a look here, this is an adversary emulation group focused on the Lazarus group. If we scroll down a little bit more, we can actually see where we stand from an effectiveness score. And it looks like our effectiveness score is directly in alignment with the results. So we got a 50% result rate here, and it's actually right there at the exact same score. So it looks like we're average with this setup. So there's definitely some work for us to do. So let's go ahead and now take a look at how are we going to help you understand what this means and how to actually implement some further controls. And to start, this is a multi-stage attack. So we want to highlight, first of all, what stages were actually tested. So it looks like we got stage 1 and stage 2. What this means, if we look there on the right, is across stage 1, it looks like we ran 3 techniques total, 3 of them which were not prevented, 1 of them which was. Now, every stage is going to have different capabilities and choke points. So it looks like we were still able to get to stage 2, but at this point, we were eventually, preventing it at the second stage as the idea at a step that was actually critical. Now, I talk about critical states, and how do you actually understand that? We're actually going to give you a full description of what the attack looks like. There's actually even going to be this corresponding blog for all of our content for you to go ahead and look and understand what the attack paths mean. As you can see, we'll break down every single stage step by step so you can understand exactly what it is that's being tested here. The same context, though, is going to be made available in this report, so you can try to get an understanding of exactly what happens step by step and what are the different TTPs that you should care about or focus on for any given stage of the attack, as you can see from there. Now, finally, here we have further analysis from the perspective of MITRE and the tactics, techniques, and procedures used at every stage, and your corresponding prevention rates for each of those. And then finally, now that we understand where we have some gaps, we also are going to provide you with some mitigation recommendations. One of the scenarios that was not mitigated was a DLL side loading technique. And from here, you're going to get recommendations directly from AttackIQ, which are going to come in the form, as you can see here, signal rules. These are going to be signal rules that you can actually copy and paste right into your sim. Most things support Sigma nowadays. So we want to give you very actionable mitigation recommendations that you can leverage. But also, for those of you that are using MITRE attack mitigations, we're also going to send you to those recommendations from a MITRE perspective. So you'll get advice from AttackIQ directly. We'll point you to the right resources from the overall community, and then also some of the MITRE resources as well. The idea with this is to help you understand your security posture. In this case, we're doing an average, but we probably want to do better than that and give you the tools to actually, make things better. That's actually it, team. The idea of this is to make it very, very simple, very intuitive, and to be able to do testing in a matter of minutes, versus a matter of weeks, which is what typically organizations needed to do in the past. With that, I see some questions here, so we'll go ahead and move on to those. So first and foremost, let's take a look here. So we have some questions around, from a corporate perspective, make sure the test system is comprehensive and accurate, meaning if not all inputs are connected to the network VPN, how does Flex work for those? Yeah, so from that perspective, as AttackIQ, we have over 10 years of experience doing this for enterprise organizations. This is the same context and the same test, from that perspective. In terms of understanding, that the right endpoints are connected and how Flex sees those, I think that's, we definitely have some recommendations around, depending on where you want to test, where these things should be located. If you want to test specific networks, then it's up to you to make sure that the right VPNs are connected, and as part of that process, we will give some context as part of the results that'll help ensure that, the network or VPN that you're targeting would be tested here. The next question is around M&As, right? Asking about if Flex assessment assesses everything, and can we provide a comprehensive report that we can rely on. Absolutely. What we found is why Flex is very interesting for our customers is instead of having to go through an entire setup process of setting up an agent with these third parties, is they can simply send them the Flex package. So it really reduces the burden on running this testing and makes it very simple. So, in terms of coverage, I think that's up to you as the person doing the M&A to really define the scope, right? If they have, I don't know, 50 offices, but they only ran it on 2, you probably want them to run some more as well. Last 2 questions here. Are these packages runnable on Mac and Linux? Today we just released this at Black Hat. We're only supporting Windows today, and by the next quarter, so the next 3 months, we will have Linux and also Mac packages as well. By the way, we support that today on our enterprise solution. It's just a matter of releasing that for Flex 2, which is coming shortly. Let's see. Yeah, so definitely the next question around how many credits, depending on what we want to test. Yeah, so if you want to run this on 100 machines, it would be 100 credits essentially, right? That would be necessary. Basically, one package will run on 1 machine, and that's how that connection works. Does the Flex package attempt any networking connectivity outside of the originating client? The answer is it depends. Some of these threats may contain that, may not. Every threat's going to have a description, but it really depends on the testing that you're running, whether it's a threat-based one or a controls-based one as well. And then the last question is, do we have any package around NIST and CSF controls and metrics? Today, we're focused on control validation. Things like testing for NIST are more complex. We definitely have those on the enterprise side. Things like user permissions, context, all those things have to be very clearly defined. So today is not available on Flex. It might be something that we do in the future. And the last question, just a little over here, so I'll make this the last question. How does the actual Sigma rule mitigate/prevent the action from being done? Is it only detect them and see it? That's going to depend on the Sigma rule. Most of the Sigma rules are there to detect, but it's easy enough for you to configure it to say, I want you, once this is detected, to block this process. So most Sigma rules are there from a detection perspective, and it would be up to you to make this decision when this type of process or context is identified, whether you want to kill that process and at what point do you kill that process. That's going to be up to you. But it's going to be a mix of mitigation and detection recommendations depending on the threat that we're providing mitigations for. So it's not as cut and dry as just detections, for example. All right, I appreciate all the questions. This is great, great questions from the team, great participation. I don't see any other questions at this time. So again, thank you for your time. I really appreciate you taking the time today. We'll be following up with some Flex credits, so please try them out and give us some feedback on what you see. If there's any other questions that come up, you can email me directly, jose@attackiq.com. More than happy to answer any questions for those that maybe didn't want to answer it in the group today. Thanks again for your time and take care, everyone. Bye.